Atypically large Sargassum influxes have, unfortunately, been occurring in Antigua and the rest of the Caribbean in most years since 2011, affecting coastal communities, tourism, fishermen and sailors amongst others. We've been asked by various individuals if it is possible for them to predict in advance when heavy influxes are approaching and when and where they're imminent. The good news is that, yes, there is a way that you yourselves can make informed calculations. However, it is rather hidden and unknown to most. So, we've prepared this short video to show you how. We will not cover the biology or possible causes. However, this might well be the subject of a future video if there's enough interest. We do hope that you find this brief guide informative and empowering, whatever your reasons for needing this ability. At the end of this simplified guide, you'll know how to access and interpret this information, which combines algal density, with red being the densest and purple being the least dense, the surface current directions, and the surface current speeds. As we can see in this historical example, there was a large raft to the northeast of Antigua at approximately 10 miles. We can see that the surface currents were from the north and were approximately 1 knot. Therefore, we were able to predict landfall of these large rafts within the next few hours. The Sargassum watch system covers several regions, but the ones we're interested in are the Central Atlantic imagery data and the Caribbean imagery data, which have separate links. Now, the Central Atlantic data shows the Sargassum as it forms off Brazil and moves into our region from the southeast. Now, this is useful for seeing what's off the east coast and to predict landfalls. For those heading into the Caribbean side of the Lesser Antilles, you'll need to use the link to the Caribbean data. You will also need to install Google Earth in order to integrate this imagery with the surface current data from HICOM in order to make predictions. Don't worry, it's easier than it sounds. So here we go with the Central Atlantic data. If you go to the web address listed below, which we'll also give at the end, this is what you'll see. Along the bottom we have various windows. These show different spectrographic analyses taken by the satellites. The one we're interested in for our purposes is this one, the AFAI, the Alternative Floating Algal Index, which specifically looks for sargassum, green algae and cyanobacteria. Along the top, we'll see different satellites at different times of day. You will notice large black sways. This is due to the satellites constantly changing their tracks with each pass, so you may have to hunt around. Now, Antigua is in the top left-hand corner of all these images, so if we look at this satellite pass, for example, we'll notice that Antigua in the AFI is no longer represented, so you may have to hunt around. Returning to this better image, there are two sorts of images we can get. We can either click directly on the window, in which case we just get a simple picture. Now, this does show the densities of the floating algae, however it does not give a key. Returning back to the imagery we had before, if we click on Google Earth, down in the corner as we suggested you installed, we now get multiple overlays. Here we can now see, on top of Google Earth, there is not only the satellite density data, along with a key showing the densities, but we now also have the current data, which is taken from the previous evening. We can zoom in and drag on this to get to the area of our interest. So here's Antigua, saying starting location. Let's put that in ourselves. And we can look around for any particular thick mats. There aren't any here, but say there was one here, we can look at this arrow to see which way it's like to go and click on it. This now gives us not only the direction of the current as shown by the arrow, but it gives it the speed. Regrettably, the speed is given in centimetres per second, so I'm afraid you're going to have to do a calculation to convert that into the type of speed you want. For example, to convert to knots, it's approximately divide by 50, and to miles an hour, it's approximately divide by 45. So using the density, the direction and the speed, you can start to predict when large areas of sargassum are going to be in the area of interest to you.
Oh yeah!
So how do we judge what's a large amount of sargassum? Well, remember we talked about the key in the bottom right-hand corner. This measures the surface reflectance in the spectrographic range we're looking at, and this acts as a surrogate for sargassum density. So what we're looking for is areas tending towards the greens and the reds. these large areas of blues and pale colours and cold colours in this low density area are of no great concern. However, in this next image, we see high density areas with large areas of greens heading into yellows and with patches of red, and these are the ones that we should be concentrating on. For those heading westwards, you will need to access the Eastern Caribbean dataset. The link is shown below and we'll give it again at the end. Here the resources are exactly the same as you saw in the Central Atlantic, with all the various spectrographic analyses along the bottom and the satellite data along the top, and you just access it as before. Finally, we'll quickly show you 3 of the other features that you can access on this resource, although there are many others. Firstly, you'll notice there is a composite tab, which compiles all the data over the preceding week, allowing you to get a recent history of events. If you want to go back further in history, there's a calendar on the left-hand side. Here you can select any month of the year, any date, and it will then present you with the same data that you've been used to seeing for the daily forecasts. Finally, if you want to see the forecasts and the outlook for the future, if you move down to Projects on the left-hand side and expand that, then click on the Sargassum watch system, you'll notice a list of bulletins. If you click on that, that will then give you a PDF with an outlook for the next month. So to summarise the basic utility that most people will be looking for, we're going to use the Central Atlantic data again. We go to the day's website address, in this case it will be the Central Atlantic link, which we'll give at the end, and we look at the various satellite images. You'll see, because remember we're looking for the AFAI data, you'll see there's not much in the Antigua area. So we look at other satellite passes. Again, there's some close to Antigua. There's a lot of data there, but when we look closely at it, we'll notice that very close to Antigua, we've got the large black line, as we do up here. So we'll look for another one. If we go to the next one, that again is a long way off Antigua. Look at this one. This is looking a lot better. And finally this one, again a paucity of data. So this looks like the best data. And you'll see it's covering the whole area around Antigua, Barbuda and Guadeloupe. So we head back to it and we head to the Google Earth link. And here we have the data pulled up. So pulling it across and zooming in on Antigua, remember it's in the top left hand corner of these data sheets, we can see some large rafts here just off the coast of Guadeloupe heading in a northwesterly direction. There are also some rafts, though far less dense, they're not containing these big green areas and the yellow areas of the southernmost raft, heading directly due west and then seem to be skirting up past Barbuda. So if we look at this other raft here, we can see from the direction arrow that it's heading up currently to the southern coast, and it's moving at a speed of approximately half a mile an hour. If we remember that Antigua's approximate dimensions are about 10 miles in each direction, this is a little over 20 miles away. So if it carried on the current course, then we'll be looking at over 40 hours before arrival. Remember, these currents will change as it gets closer, so keep an eye out. Well, that's all folks. We leave you now with the links for the Central Atlantic data and for the Caribbean data. We hope you found this tutorial instructional and useful, if a little dry at times. We of course would like to thank the College of Marine Science at the University of South Florida and to HICOM for providing the surface current data. Please bear in mind that we're not professional video producers, nor do we have the equipment to do so, and we wish you well for your future predictions.